In Cape Town, South Africa, the continent's oldest orchestra is building a tradition of discovering talent, no matter where it lives.
Music is a passport out of all of the challenges in the township. It takes you away from all of the things that are happening around you.
And as it builds on this diversity,
Masidlale is trying to give access to music education to kids who formerly would not have this opportunity, so that we can produce symphony orchestras that do represent South Africa's demographics.
This ensemble of excellence looks ahead to new possibilities.
We have to be part of nation building. We have to reach out to a large community that never had the opportunity to play in an orchestra or to have formal training. And we're doing that with large and vast outreach projects.
This is the journey of the Cape Town Philharmonic. This is Inside Africa. Once a week, music teachers travel from Cape Town up the barren west coast of South Africa to find their students. Among them is Odile Burden. She is on a mission to grow an orchestra.
Masidlale is a music program that aims to give access to music education to kids where there is no access in the area. We teach violin, we've just introduced viola, we teach trumpet, trombone, flute, and recorder.
Odile manages a unique outreach program for the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra.
What's the other name for 2/4? Simple, duple time.
This training program is creating jobs for music teachers and opportunities for children. It's funded by the Cape Philharmonic Orchestra.
It started out really, really tiny, and it's just gotten legs, it's grown. I think we have about 200, it may even be closer to 300 people involved in this youth development program. It's a source of income for teachers. It's a place where 300 youngsters would not have access to music education were the orchestra to fold.
Come get your flutes.
These flutes have been donated to the students. Today, they are receiving them for the first time in their hands.
Our aim is really to go in, make an impact, and then train up so that we can go to the next area and also invest in that area.
Ashley Loskiter lives in this remote town, Mamre, once a mission station.
Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra being a classical orchestra and promotes classical music. 1-3. Me and my wife saw the need for rhythm section instruments, and that's why we started our own music school.
Most public schools in South Africa don't offer specialist musical tuition. Instruments are expensive. Music lessons like this are considered a luxury.
Good.
Odile is taking a young violinist through his paces.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. G. And you get kids who really stand out in terms of natural talent. When we do find a student like that, we fast-track them.
Odile nurtures a dream in this dusty classroom. She hopes that some of her students will advance to the Philharmonic Youth Orchestra.
I was one of the founding members. It played such a huge role in sort of giving me guidance and shaping my career. Getting coaching from the professional musicians in the orchestra, being mentored by them, eventually being offered side-by-side concerts where you, as a teenager, get to perform in the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra and you get a glimpse into what the professional life is.
I was also extremely fortunate to get into the orchestra. I was quite young. I was 22 actually when I got the job. So I would say that me joining the youth orchestra, that was kind of like a bridging course from the student world into the professional world, because obviously that's when I became associated with the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra.
Ryan van der Rede is a gifted trombonist who blew his first notes in a church band. Today, he is passing on some of his skills.
Breathing, playing together, playing in tune, listening to each other, and not just focusing on your part. Obviously, you do need to focus on your part to play the right notes, but playing music means fitting in with what the next person is doing. So it has to sound like one person playing.
Masilale's work is really, really important with regards to feeding into the orchestra one day. Obviously, we can't employ every single one of our students, but they will be going into the pool of South African musicians that we can choose from one day.
Calm down.
And we're working really hard to ensure that they will be good enough.
As a child, Odile begged for a violin until she got her way. She comes from a musical family who understood what she wanted.
I've always just been drawn to the quality of the sound. Yeah, for me it's just really beautiful.
But for some of her colleagues who grew up in a township, the sound of strings was a revelation.
Before I learned the violin, I'd never heard classical music. I didn't know anything about instrument, nothing at all. It was a strange thing. It was a new thing for us. I think music, it brings light to everything that is happening around us in the township. When I play the violin, I feel love, you know, the sense of love, you know, when you feel love, not loved, but love within you. It brings love within me.
Nolu and her brother Sia caused a stir in their street. When they started to play the violin, the instrument was a novelty.
And even for our neighbors, actually, those were the people that had problems because we were making a noise in the house. So I think for us entering in the classical world, if I may put it like that, it was a new thing for us. And I think it was fun, actually, once we got to know the world.
The way they practiced together as children developed their ear. Nolu plays first violin. Sia was her second fiddle.
At home, we practiced together. Come back from school, take out our violins. Then we practice together. So if I had something that I was struggling with, I was asking her all the time because she was the one that was quite more advanced than me.
Now the siblings are teaching at Masilale, the outreach program sponsored by Africa's oldest orchestra.
Ready and... Ready and... Ready, play. I think for me, the first or the nicest part as a teacher is when they start plucking the E string. Then they're like, oh, what is, you should see their faces when they start doing it. It's like, what is this? I've never heard this before. So the first moment when they first start playing the E string is the most beautifulest if there's such a word, the most beautifulest for me as a teacher to experience it with them.
Okay.
Both Sia and Nolu have built their careers on their talent and the need to extend musical education beyond the wealthy suburbs of the Cape.
It makes a big difference teaching them their mother tongue in Xhosa. Because, for example, I can ask them to do something in English and then they will just stare at me and then look at me like, huh? To me, it's much more effective to teach them in Xhosa because they will understand every single thing I say to them.
I don't see myself anywhere else at the moment other than teaching at the Cape Philharmonic Orchestra, because that's where my heart is.
But they need the continued presence of an orchestra to provide a future for the next generation of musicians. South Africa is only one of a handful of African countries to support symphony orchestras.
At the southern tip of Africa, we have a different responsibility. We have to be part of nation building. We have to reach out to a large community that never had the opportunity to play in an orchestra or to have formal training, and we're doing that with large and vast outreach projects. We're in the townships 5 days a week. We have 2 wonderful youth orchestras. We've got several ensembles, and they're doing marvelously. We are so proud of what we've achieved over the last 15 years with young musicians from marginalized communities.
This orchestra was established in a very different era. In 1914, when South Africa was a British colony, but it is determined to move with the times.
The financial side will always be a problem in a country like South Africa. We have come a long way, and there is some government funding, but ticket prices are not high enough to sustain us, and the sustainability of an orchestra is a major challenge.
So at this point of the story, basically the prince has traveled the world in 24 hours, apparently, or in maybe 7 hours. One, and...
Here, they are preparing to accompany the ballet Cinderella.
Yes.
The orchestra has to multitask to stay financially afloat.
We call ourselves an orchestra for all seasons, because we have to play for ballet, we have to play for opera, all the commercial concerts, all the symphony concerts. We do a lot of outreach concerts, so we have to work very hard in a city like Cape Town to make it work.
So 287 should be boom, 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 really loud and full of energy.
Their resident conductor, Brandon Phillips, has to be comfortable in a range of settings, from clowning around on stage to mastering serious symphonies. Today, Brandon, the orchestra, and local choirs are making music in a sports stadium in Gugulethu, one of Cape Town's oldest townships.
I love the idea we go to the townships and we perform for the people. Because how are we going to get all the people to the City Hall, for example? You know, they can't afford traveling to the City Hall. So basically, I love that idea. I mean, even if we play under a tree somewhere, I wouldn't mind doing that at all. Just to touch souls and hearts.
Cape Town Philharmonic's resident conductor prepares for a symphony concert. Brandon Phillips is a talented musician. As a child, he mastered 11 instruments: wind, strings, and brass.
My two brothers, both of them got a flute as a Christmas present, and then later my eldest brother got a cello, and then Ashley went over to clarinet, and he got an oboe. So while they were at school, I was at primary school at that time, obviously, and then I used to, sneak into their rooms and play on their instruments and try to teach myself their instruments. And before they come home, I used to clean it up and just pack it to his walls.
The New Apostolic Church in Cape Town was both his religious home and his musical school. The congregation here has fostered orchestral music for over 100 years, and it was among the congregation that Brandon discovered the instrument that he loves the most.
It's normally called the joker of the orchestra, with a pop, 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 bouncy sound. And it can also be very sad and very play beautiful melodies. The range is quite vast. So yeah, just the tone and the tone colors it creates.
Getting a job as a bassoonist in his 20s was a dream come true. He still holds the position of principal bassoon player when not conducting.
It becomes hard work, it becomes sweaty work, but it's something you enjoy and you're passionate about. Getting paid to do something I love, which is fantastic. The only thing I could do.
The orchestra has also managed to draw South African-born talent back home from Europe into its ranks. Petrus Kutsia is the principal violist at a comparatively young age.
I never expected for a job like this to come up in South Africa, which is a great privilege to have, I think, because as a violist, this is one of the top jobs to have in my home country. So when I got the email, I was really confused and not sure what to do because I felt so comfortable in Germany. Eventually, I decided to give it a chance and to go for the audition. Yes, and to just give it a chance, and eventually I get to spend a lot of time with my family and I can live in my home country, which is really a great privilege.
Tonight's symphony concert in Cape Town's majestic City Hall is sold out. The visiting conductor from Hong Kong has a long-standing relationship with this orchestra at the tip of Africa.
So it's very funny the way that I have a connection with Cape Town. I first came here in '98 with my high school orchestra, and I was completely enchanted by this country. We went to Robben Island, we went to Kruger, we saw really the two extremes of South Africa, and I loved it, and I was so inspired by this place. And so when I first got an invitation in 2010, I believe, to come record a CD with the Cape Town Philharmonic, I grabbed that opportunity. And I've been coming every 2 or 3 years ever since.
Since the end of apartheid, the orchestra has been able to attract even more international guest stars to its performances, such as celebrated English cellist Raphael Wallfish.
There was a time, I remember, when people who went it was frowned upon to come to South Africa because of the regime. But there's always been a very vibrant musical life here. It's the second time I've been, and of course it's the most beautiful place to visit.
At the height of apartheid, the City Hall was reserved for white people, as was the music that was played here. So as the first conductor of color, Brandon has made history here. Knowing South Africa's past makes him passionate about the orchestra's future.
We have youth orchestras, we have a wind band, we have a lot of stuff going on in the community. I mean, if this shuts down, Cape Town would be a graveyard for me. It would just not, you know? I mean, we wouldn't be able to do what we love and touch people, make music and do what we do now.
Violinist Odile Burden is as committed. While driving the orchestra's outreach program by day, she never misses a chance to attend an evening performance.
My mom would tell me stories of how she, she was a music student who wanted to go watch concerts at the City Hall, but she could only get a seat that was behind a pillar because of the color of her skin. So being able to sit in the City Hall, and my parents, my family always reminded me of just how special these things are, that I never took these things for granted.
For over a century, symphonies and applause have filled this beautiful hall. The orchestra is hoping that another 100 years of extraordinary music lie ahead.
Whenever I see an orchestra like Cape Town Philharmonic doing such extensive work with especially children who don't usually have access to this art form, I think that is the future. That is where classical music is going to grow, because music can be universal. Music can speak across borders, but at the same time we really have to work at it. And to see that work being done the way that it is here is really wonderful.